Welcome, implementers. Welcome to Learn to Implement, where you are going to learn how to stop learning and start implementing. That's the problem, is that we click on things. We start listening. We start reading. We download some app, but then we don't ever manage to make it part of our lives. Now, the solution is not to go and start using all of these apps or start applying all of these lessons. Sometimes you've got to be very, very discerning and say, hey, this podcast, this topic is not really relevant for me. And even if I'm binge listening or binge watching a podcast, for example, or buying a book, I don't necessarily need to read it. I don't need to read the whole thing, because you get to a point where you say, hey, this is no longer serving me, or it's not serving me at this time in my life. And so the message for today's episode is look before you click. I'm Anthony English, and if you've heard episode 1, you will know that I am a lifelong learner. I love listening to podcasts, audiobooks. I love reading books, especially around business, marketing, productivity, habits, a little bit around human psychology and how to talk to people, how to communicate. But the problem with these things is that what you're committing to is a lot more than just the actual time it takes you to listen to that podcast or to read the book. And so look before you click. Here's what I mean. I'll take 2 examples. So since you are a podcast listener, then we'll take podcasts as one example. And another one is downloading some app that you've heard recommended, people are raving about. And I'm not talking about a social media app that's pretty much a poor use of your time. I'm talking about something that is going to make you more efficient and make a better use of your time, make you more organized, help you to get things done. Okay, so let's take that example first of a podcast. So let's say there's an interview podcast, or it could be a solo advice podcast like you're listening to from me right now. Now, you might hear some tips, you might hear some words, you might hear some quotes, you might hear a story, and you think, wow, that's really good. That is really relevant to me. I've listened to that person, to David Allen, maybe speaking about getting things done, and wow, I would really love to stop keeping things in my head. My head is not a good place for storing things. It's time for me to get them out of my head so that I can free up my headspace for thinking rather than remembering things. Okay, so you listen to that thing in the podcast, but then what are you going to do? You're going to write it down. Maybe you will. Are you going to go back? Are you going to go and actually apply something? Let's say that on one of those podcasts, they recommend, or in a blog post, or some friend, maybe a colleague, recommends some productivity approach, some app that you could use. Think about what it is that you are committing to when you sign up for a new app, when you subscribe to it. Now, I'm not even talking about a paid one. I'm talking about the free app. Okay, I'm not talking about the pro version. So, okay, first you've got to download the app. Well, that doesn't take long. And then you have to sign up for it. You have to create a password, maybe remember the password or write it down, or hopefully you'll do what I do, which is store it in a password manager, such as 1Password. You've got to verify after you sign up. And then you've got to sign in. And maybe you're going to be signing in on the app. Maybe the app runs on your mobile. Maybe you're going to have it on a couple of other devices as well. Maybe you're going to sign up or you're going to log in on their website. And now you've got to set up your profile. Not just the basics. Maybe you've got to do more. You've got to upload a photo. You have to start configuring things. And then you've got to learn to use it. And then you have to think, well, how am I going to implement that in my situation? Because this app, it was very relevant for this person who I listened to, or on this blog post that I read, but I'm in a slightly different situation. That person is a sales manager. I'm not a manager. I'm a solopreneur. Or that person is a busy mom, and that's not me. So you've then got to apply it to yourself and start implementing yourself. But what I'm trying to tell you is that when you are signing up, when you are listening to a podcast, when you are, and I'm talking about these ones that are on improvement or productivity or business related, making some more money. When you do that, if you want to apply the lessons, you're going to be dedicating some time, putting some time aside to learn it, to download it, to do all of those things that I said, to configure it, configure your profile, to get enough of the basics so that it becomes useful for you. And then you decide whether you're going to pay for a subscription for this. You'll start to get emails from the app themselves, from the app owners, from the app company to say, hey, this is how you use things. You're going to be seeing short videos, maybe some longer ones, maybe watch some webinars. So do you see that when you are committing to listening to a podcast episode, a single episode, or reading a book, you may well be committing to a whole lot more. And that's totally okay. But don't be beating yourself up if you don't do that. If it's quite okay for you to say, I am not going to click. I'm not going to listen to this podcast. It sounds interesting, but I'm not going to listen to it because I don't have time. I've got the time to listen to the podcast. I've got the time to read the book maybe, or listen to the audio book, or to watch that YouTube channel. But what I don't have time to do is to implement it. And so that is where it's time for you to say, hey, look before you click. Maybe this is not serving me right now. This is not the time for me to be learning about investments or about how to run a team when I'm on my own and I don't have plans in the near future to be running a team. This is not the point where I need to learn this stuff right now. So look before you click. That's the message for today in the Learn to Implement podcast. I'm Anthony English. This is episode 2, and thank you for listening.